Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. Outlander is the show from Starz TV, based on the books by Diana Gabaldon, all about time-travelling Dr. Claire and her 18th century hubby Jamie, and a whole load of other people besides. Episode 5, Perpetual Adoration, is kind of a mixed bag of the concurrent storylines. It starts off with a flashback to Claire back in Boston in the 1960s, and she's hanging out in a church, and then it segues into her finally discovering the right strain of penicillin. Now, how are these two things related? Well, turns out through a whole bunch more flashbacks and voiceovers that back in the 1960s, Claire had a patient who was from Scotland, and he reminded her a lot of Jamie, but then it turned out he was allergic to penicillin, but it didn't show up on the test, so she prescribed it and he died, and he didn't need to. And so, obviously, she felt sad about it, and after chatting to Dr. Joe, she decided to take Brianna on a visit to the UK. Meanwhile, back in the present, which is also the past, she's using this penicillin, and she used it to do the operations on the twins, Keziah and Josiah, and it seems that, actually, it's all fine. But it's not all fine for Bree and Roger. I mean, it starts okay with them all cuddled up after a bit of nookie and him making jokes about starting a university in the past or something, but later on, he finds out the diamond that Bree got off Bonnet back in the prison, and she's still got it. And he recognises it because it turns out that he played cards with Bonnet for it back when he was working on the ship. And of course, he confronts Brianna about all this, and they end up having a proper argument about it, and he storms off to sleep under a tree, and the next morning he nearly shoots Claire by accident when she's out foraging. And they have a bit of a heart-to-heart, and Claire drops a bit of wisdom, and everyone's kind of the better for it, especially when he goes back and tries to kiss and make up, and then Bree drops the double bomb that Bonnet isn't actually dead, and he might be sort of stalking her. So Roger's like, well, hell then. As soon as Jemmys big enough, we're going to go back through the stones to the future again. And then the final storyline this week is Jamie going back to, Helmsburg Township, and then finding the yokels there. And they're all a bit standoffish, but it's because they think that he's a regulator, and they think the militia's there to cause some trouble. But when he points out he's actually on the side of the crown, they're like, oh, okay, they're all in the pub over there. And he's like, cool, do you want to join the militia? And they're like, haha, no. So still he ends up catching up with Knox, who's played sideways Mumbletipeg with a poster of Murtaugh. And he gets Jim to have a shot as well, but he misses. And it seems that, they've been told that they've got to disband the militia, and they're going to give out pardons to the regulator top dudes, all except for Murtaugh, because he's going to be made an example of. But Knox has already requested a list of the men that were with Murtaugh at Ardsmuir, and that gives Jim the chills. And that night, just before Jamie heads home, they have one last game of chess, and a wee laddie turns up with the Ardsmuir papers, and Jamie comes clean that his name's on them, and Knox is like, yeah, good one, mate. But then he's like, oh no, wait, oh shit. And Jamie tries to reason with him, but it's clear that, Knox is not going to be reasonable. So Jamie ends up suffocating him, and then covers up the murder with a bit quick thinking and then a closed off chimney. And it turns out everybody buys it. And because, the internet exists, they end up finding a wee cat, and they decide to keep it, and he gives it to Claire as a present. And then Claire tells him all about how the guy dying of penicillin is actually the reason she found her way back to him after all. Which is kind of sweet, if a little bit morbid. But hey ho. That's Outlander, and that's how the show rolls. So what did I think? Well, as I've said, this week was kind of a mixed bag of storylines. And in a lot of ways it was tying up quite a few of these and getting them all to a convenient point to step off into new things. I mean, we got an end to the penicillin search that we had a few weeks ago, and the disbanding of the militia and the Knox story. And then we got Bree and Roger coming clean with each other about some of the Bonnet stuff. I mean, making it pretty clear that their story and happiness is kind of intrinsically tied in with him. And it isn't going to get sorted out until either they get back through the stones back to the 1960s, or maybe it's the 1970s by this point, or maybe until he gets dead. Could go either way. Could be both. And I think that despite this show basically having turned into the Roger is crap at everything show, apart from him singing and apparently keeping his wife happy at bedtime, I mean, seriously, he just looks away in the middle of a card game. I mean, this is right up there with The Princess Bride in terms of just silly moments.
What in the world can that be?
What? Where? I don't see anything.
We at least got to see him having a slightly understandable reaction to hearing that his wife had gone to visit her rapist in prison and then told the rapist that the kid was actually his. I mean, I can understand that upsetting him. And, and apparently she's told Roger that either she didn't know or something. I mean, it's all a bit vague, but I like that there were no easy answers. And that, even when he's chatting to Claire later, they both have their own points of view, and it's not as entirely clear-cut as just do what I did, because life isn't ever that simple. And Roger does feel like he's grown a bit as a character, whereas in some ways Brianna's kind of regressing into the wallpaper at this point. I mean, I'm guessing the show is going to give her a little bit more to do other than look panicked and worried and sad all the time. But yeah, I mean, I hope it goes that way. And the Jamie and Knox storyline, I mean, that was like the bromance that could never be. And I'm kind of happy with the way they did this because I think Michael Xavier did a really good job in making Knox like a complex antagonist who wasn't a completely irredeemable bad guy. I mean, he wasn't Blackjack, but he also definitely wasn't like the nicest guy. But he's kind of loyal to his mates and to the crown and stuff, and he genuinely hated the regulators, which wasn't surprising after them tar and feathering those guys like the other week. Although Jamie does seem to have forgiven and forgotten an awful lot of that already. And Jamie was kind of interesting this week, especially like some of the wee touches they did. Like I like the fact that he threw the knife and missed intentionally because he doesn't want to throw a knife at his godfather, and how he genuinely tries to talk his way out of basically what was an impossible situation by reasoning with Knox before he has to kill him. I mean, the fact that also, as well as that, he actually has the nous to try and make it look like Knox died of smoke inhalation. And, I mean, that was also the way they played that. It looked like he genuinely hadn't thought of that until he started burning the stuff and then he looked at the fire. I mean, it's nice. I like how that worked, and it was clever of him to do that. And then he got away by sneaking across the roof like Assassin's Creed style. And it was also nice to return to some of the 1960s stuff. I'd actually forgotten how much fun a lot of it was, especially like seeing Joe Abernathy again, even if it was really clumsy as hell that she had to name drop him like that.
Joe Abernathy, doctor and a detective.
But that kind of leads me into some of the problems I had with this week. You see, there was an awful lot of expository dialogue this week, and a lot of it was voiceover. And I'm not a fan of the voiceovers, I've made that really clear. And it wasn't the worst that it's been, but it still kind of sounded off. And it wasn't helped by the weird way they edited all these flashbacks together. And it was really intriguing because, like, at the end of the show, the producers, Matt and Marital, said that they were talking about how they decided in the editing room to actually mix these flashbacks around rather than just play them out in order.
The story was told in a linear fashion, but in editing we decided to kind of change things up and move things around.
So that you knew from the offset that this guy had died of like a penicillin allergy. And I think that was a really bad choice. It just didn't work for me at all. Partly because I thought that the final sentiment of the episode, that
all paths lead to Jamie and Claire,
kind of made me go a big... I mean, I know that they're the main characters and this is, a show that's about them ostensibly, and I know an awful lot of the fan base is literally only here for Jamie and Claire. I mean, fair enough, whatever. But that's not for me. I think this is a really good ensemble show with a lot of really interesting characters and storylines, and I want to see the whole lot of it. So if it becomes the point when the show is being reduced down to kind of fanboy squeeing stuff about Jamie and Claire, I mean, I don't need that. I think I get enough of that on Twitter. But the point is, like, I felt that it detracted from the story of Claire and this random Scots immigrant widower guy, and the vigil for his American wife. I mean, it was a bit like some of the worst bits of season 3, which, I mean, on the whole, I actually liked season 3 quite a lot. But this kind of muddled itself into a mess where I was like, where's this going? I mean, is this about the twins getting dead of penicillin or something? No, that's not really a bit of this. That's only a tiny part of the storyline this week. So what's this random guy doing, giving her an idea to go on holiday? And then it's like, oh, that's it. That's the entire moral, emotional pinning of this episode. How about no? How about do better? I mean, they could have like done loads of stuff with an idea like this. They could have teased out the story of the guy, and you'd be like, "Why is this? What is this all about?" And then you'd second guess maybe, and then you'd think towards the end when he dies of penicillin, you'd like, "Oh no, the twins!" And then it would turn out they were fine. But instead, telling you right off the bat just felt kind of weird, especially when the episode wasn't about the twins. Really, they only had one scene. And similarly, although I said they did justice to the Jamie and Knox storyline, I kind of feel like we've spent 4 episodes building up a militia only just to disband it and go home. Kind of feels pointless. I mean, it really felt like it wasn't worth all the effort. It wasn't worth them wandering around through the woods and the trees and the towns, and I don't understand what the point of that was. So this week never really managed to engage me the way some of the previous episodes have. I mean, even the Haunted Cabin in the Woods one, despite me having a lot more issues with the episode itself, I was at least engaged in that story because it was so bonkers. But this week, it's like they've made a stew of all the scraps of storylines they had lying around that they wanted to tie up before the show gets on with like the next narrative arc or something. And that kind of worries me because we're only just before halfway through the season. And I know that there's a big battle coming up. So does that mean we're going to have a few weeks of Monster of the Week stuff, kitchen sink drama episodes, and then suddenly Tryon will be like, oh yeah, get that militia back together, and because we've got to go and like have a big fight with Murtaugh and his guys. I mean, I could be wrong, but yeah, only time will tell. So for me, I mean, this week kind of just came and went. I'm not sure what we've gained from it, other than a kitten. And if that's all, then I'm sorry to tell you, I'm more of a dog person. But on another note, and I'm a bit more serious, obviously everyone in the world's going through a bit of a hard time at the moment. There's the whole coronavirus, COVID-19 thing, and I'm sorry to put this in a fun video at the end, but just in case people haven't seen it, I just wanted to show you this little infographic. It's basically the curve of what happens with the virus and when it peaks and why it's a good idea to stay away from like big crowds of people and avoid like passing the virus around to other people. So if we flatten the curve out, it takes a lot longer for like more people to get ill, and then all the National Health Service and all the other medical places around the world and your local doctors, they've got more beds, they've got more time, and they've got more chance of saving more lives. So yeah, I hope everybody stays safe. I hope everybody stays well, and take care of yourselves. But yeah, remember, wash your hands. Take 20 seconds to do it. Sing the Outlander theme while you're doing it, and then you'll make sure that they're nice and clean. And yeah, everyone just take care. Until next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.